Welcome back to another Spirit Island video. In this video, we're going to be continuing my tier list, this time focusing on S tier. Let's look at my S tier defined. It says this tier is for spirits who give out powerful support and have dominant matchups against most adversaries. Powerful support is defined as either a power card boon / energy support, a unique support card such as Swarm of Bedevilment or Gift of Proliferation, by increasing the blight pool by taking minimal blight. An example would be green taking 0 blight, which gives the rest of the team a larger blight budget. Number 4 would be fear bursts and high fear generation. And finally, number 5, able to donate additional actions without detrimenting that spirit's ability to control its own portion of lands. A good example of number 5 would be Downpour, placing a presence and then innately defending that land, or Hearth Vigil, placing a presence on another board, protecting those Dahan. Basically, these are spirits that can handle its portions of lands consistently and have powerful support tools. The key is the spirit must do both. Hence why a spirit that can generate a lot of fear but loses control of its board, such as Bringer, is rated much lower. Again, I'm going to talk about what am I looking for. So number 1, consistency. How frequently can I replicate the desired outcome? Number 2, the matchups across all single level 6 adversaries. Number 3, the number of spirit combos. How many team compositions does the spirit fit into? Can the spirit play with any spirit in the game and succeed, or does the spirit really need to focus on a couple spirits? Number 4, number of high spirit combos. Can this spirit be brought into a 6/6 composition and actively contribute? A good example would be Snake plus Memory. That is a very powerful high spirit combo, but can Snake perform like that when placed with other spirits? Number 5, the ability to give out support. I talked about that up here. Number 6, the ability to tank. Can the spirit absorb extra invaders from other boards? Think of this as Finder placing invaders on your board, or maybe Darkness finding a dump land to put their invaders from the Endless Dark. Number 7, ability to carry or take over the game. How well does the spirit utilize support elements? If I am playing Keeper, for instance, and another player is giving me energy support or reclaim support, how well can that spirit translate those tools into actions? An example of a spirit that does pretty poor with this would be I'm trying to think of a good example. Devouring Teeth, where you could give this spirit energy, you can give this spirit power cards, and Teeth is barely going to do anything with it. Now, if you compare that with Fangs, that may completely solve Fangs' game. How much blight does the spirit take on average? Is it less than 2 blight? Or is it more than 2 blight? Are you flipping that blight card? Can the spirit create isolation pockets? Does the spirit require isolation pockets to function? Thinking about Darkness or Finder. How much fear does the spirit generate? Can the spirit fear burst? Examples would be like Many Minds or Relentless Gaze. Is the spirit edge case proof? How does it perform when the worst explorers occur, or when a bad event flips? Number 12, how many boards are viable for the spirit? Does it require a certain board to succeed? And finally, number 13, can the spirit clear its own board? Looking at number 11, we have Downpour drenches the world. Now, Downpour is at the very bottom of S tier because there's some minor flaws when you look at all of the spirits above it, but it's still extremely powerful. And really, what makes Downpour so great is it's very consistent at doing the same thing over and over again. Now, typical Downpour builds, they either do G2 or G3 turn 1, and then turn 2, they do the other choice they didn't choose. So let's say you do turn 1, you G2, turn 2, you G3, and you're going to go from bottom track, and then you're going to G1 to reclaim on turn 3. Then turn 4, you're going to G2 again from top track. Turn 5, you're going to G1. And turn 6, you'll G2 going from bottom track. You're going to do the same thing over and over again. And it's going to enable your left innate. It's going to allow you to heal Blight. You're going to be able to play your very powerful cards that you can repeat It's just very consistent and it works. This is exactly what Downpour wants to be doing. It also lets you draft cards pretty much every other turn. So you're going to get plenty of drafts as well. Matchups across all level 6 adversaries. Downpour is amazing against every adversary in the game. There is not a single adversary that will give Downpour a tough time. Um, Now, obviously, there's going to be some matchups that Downpour excels in compared to others, but regardless, you should win 100% of the time with Downpour against any level 6 without any support taken. It's just very consistent across all of the matchups. Number 3, number of spirit combos. Now, Downpour has Gift of Abundance, and this says target spirit may either gain 2 energy or repeat 1 power card this turn by paying its cost. This card is so important to repeating majors, those game-ending effects, or you can use it in the early game, repeating a card like Gift of Proliferation, or another powerful support card like Gift of Constancy. But having access to this unique card in your hand is very powerful and enables so many different spirit combinations. In addition, Downpour is going to support the team, as I mentioned earlier over here, with by increasing the blight pool, and that's because you're healing blight pretty much every turn. Once you get to like I think it's like turn 3, turn 4 ish, you're gonna be healing a blight every turn with this spirit, and you don't take much blight to begin with. Another way that Downpour helps the team out is it's able to donate additional actions, and I mentioned this at the start of the video, but really it's going to come down to this left innate here, where it says you're going to target yourself, and each of your presence grants defend 1, but also lowers the Dahan counterattack. But what you're able to do is, because you have so much presence movement with these spots here, you're able to place presence on other boards and then activate this innate, and that will defend that land. So sometimes you might have an extra free defend 1 or free defend 2, and that could mean the difference between blighting and not blighting in a land. So you have plenty of ways that Downpour can support the team. Now, number of high spirit combos, I'm not too sure. This is where my inexperience with the spirit is going to show. I don't know if they exist. I'm sure they do. I'd be surprised if Downpour couldn't fit into 6/6 comps, but that's just something that I haven't tried yet. I've already talked about support, ability to tank. This is a spirit that can tank. You don't always want to, but you can, and the reason is because you have foundations. And this allows you to do 1 damage to all buildings in a land if that land is a wetland. And you're able to create wetlands with your special rule here, drench the landscape. And you're also able to you're able to tank because of this. Right innate is healing blight every turn. Can the spirit create isolation pockets? Yes, and you can because you have isolation effects with Dark Skies isolating lands, as well as Unbearable Deluge, which also isolates lands. How much fear does the spirit generate? Now, this is Downpour, one of Downpour's big weaknesses, and it generates pretty much 0 fear. You do get fear off Unbearable Deluge, so that's, I guess it's more than 0, but it's not really, you're not generating a lot of fear, and that's because a lot of times you're pushing invaders around with Dark Skies and isolating lands, and because you're stopping builds with this card, you're going to also generate less fear because there's less buildings to kill. And then usually in that mid-end game, you're going to be playing Foundations to just completely wipe out your built-up lands. But yeah, in the early game, you're not generating much fear. It's not that big of a deal because you don't really rely on fear cards, but it is something to point out. Is the spirit edge case proof? Now, unfortunately, Downpour isn't. And that's because you heavily rely on Unbearable Deluge, this defend to defend lands. If you ever flip a bad event that kills Dahan, you're going to be in a whole lot of hurt. And once Downpour starts losing the Dahan count, you will have some serious problems clearing up the invaders. Now, luckily, you always have Plan B with Foundations, but most of the time you'll be using Dahan counterattack to clear out invaders. How many boards are viable for the spirits? I know board A is your best board. That's about as far as I know. And can the spirit clear its board? The answer is yes. So Downpour, it's at the bottom of S tier. It's a very consistent, powerful spirit, can give out support. It just has just a couple minor weak spots. Looking at number 10, we have Relentless Gaze of the Sun. Now, this is another spirit that's going to be repeating power cards with that special rule. But instead of being gated by a specific number of an element, this spirit is just gated by the amount of energy you have. Now, Relentless Gaze, I think this spirit is a masterpiece. I never actually I never worked on it while they were playtesting it and creating it. But I think it's just such a better design than Downpour. Downpour definitely needs some help just because there's only that one build that you can do. With Gaze, there are so many different builds that you can choose. You can choose to G2 a lot. You can do G3. You can reclaim. And yes, I know you can do that with Downpour, but with Gaze, every turn you feel like you have to consider all of the options. In addition, growing across your tracks, sometimes you may want to go top track for the 2 energy and then choose your G3, or maybe you'll want to rush towards 2 plays early and then grab the top sun, or maybe you want to just go pure top track and play majors, or maybe pure bottom track. There's so many different builds with Gaze, and every turn I'm reassessing based on my card drafts, based on the adversary, based on the explorers. And it really creates a very unique puzzle. Now let's take a look at my criteria. Consistency. Gaze is extremely consistent, and that's because it is a 1/1/1 spirit. It's always placing presence on growth. So it doesn't matter if you're reclaiming, it doesn't matter if you're gaining cards or gaining energy, you're always placing a presence. And you also have a skip with Blinding Glare, able to skip those Ravage actions. And this allows you pretty much a tool that can be used into any matchup, and it is going to be one of your best tools. That brings us to number 2, your matchups across all single level 6 adversaries. Relentless Gaze is amazing against every adversary. There isn't a single adversary that will beat Gaze. And Gaze is actually one of the better spirits into Russia 6 or Scotland 6. There are plenty of adversaries where Relentless Gaze just absolutely decimates them. Just like Downpour, this is a spirit that will succeed 100% of the time when played correctly. Number of spirit combos. This is something that I'm not too familiar with because I'm still learning the spirit, but I've seen this spirit played in plenty of combos. I don't know all of them. I know I've seen Ray play Relentless Gaze with Ocean and absolutely destroy plenty of adversaries. I'm sure there's many more combos, and mainly Relentless Gaze is able to. The way that Relentless Gaze can combo with other spirits is because your presence are very mobile and you have plenty of damage with this left innate as well as your power cards. Playing a card like Unbearable Gaze, stopping a build in your land and then possibly another adjacent land could be pretty massive if that other adjacent land is supposed to be covered by another spirit. And since you have that Blinding Glare on Reclaim, if a spirit ever falls into, maybe they have a land that's about to cascade into multiple loss conditions, maybe you're playing against Habsburg Livestock, you can always reclaim and then skip that land with Blinding Glare. Another way that Relentless Gaze supports the team is via this Right Innate, allowing you to restore destroyed presence, could prevent other spirits from having presence destruction issues. And I really want to see if we're able to use this effect with a spirit like Green, where you're constantly restoring their presence in one of Green's lands such that Green can continuously skip lands. Something I really want to try, Relentless Gaze plus Green. Seems like a very fun combo. Now we do have this land of text here, this 3/1/1, and it used to be way cooler. It used to be way stronger too. But this says that Relentless Gaze can give energy to another spirit. I haven't really seen this utilized effectively yet, but I'm sure there's going to be cases where it will matter. At one point, this threshold used to be 3, I believe it was 3/2/2, or maybe it was 3/2/1. I think it was 3/2/2, and instead it was target spirit just gains the 3 energy. So obviously, that's very powerful, but also 3/2/2 is a very tough threshold to hit, needing to draft two water plants. But so they ended up nerfing it like this. We talked about the ability to support. Gaze is able to tank very well, and that's because you have a skip with Blinding Glare. You also have your left innate, which deals a ton of damage, and you have Focus the Sun's Rays, which also does a lot of damage. So you can just throw all of the invaders in a couple lands, and then Gaze will just nuke the lands with that left innate or your power cards. The ability to carry or take over the game, I've seen this happen with Gaze if Gaze gets the proper support. How much blight does the spirit take on average? This is probably one of Gaze's weakest parts. And it depends on how aggressive you want to be with that left innate, or if you tech towards the moon on the right innate. You can play Gaze by only taking about 2 to 3 blight and stay underneath that blight like card flip. But there are going to be cases where you're going to want to take extra blight with that left innate, usually around 4 to 5, if you want to really get ahead on your board. Can the spirit create isolation pockets? I think it can, but I'm not entirely sure. I mean, you do have control tools with Unbearable Gaze, as well as high damage with the left innate and focus in the early game, but I don't think you need to. How much fear does the spirit generate? It doesn't generate much fear in the early game, but it does have this ability to fear bursts, and it can with a card like Blinding Glare. Oh, and this reminds me, going back to number of spirit combos, I've actually done a bunch of Fractured Daze and Relentless Gaze combos, and I'm pretty sure this is a high power combo because Fractured Daze can slip any of your cards, and when it this so what the slip is, let me talk about this for people who are unaware of this. So slip is Fracture's left innate, and it allows a spirit, if you have the second threshold, it allows a spirit to reclaim a power card, and then the third threshold allows that spirit to play the power card. Now with Relentless Gaze, if you do that, let's say I play my Blinding Glare here, which is going to get me 3 fear, I could slip this card back into Gaze's hand, then Gaze can play it again. Now this is a new instance of the card, which means Gaze can repeat it as if it was that 0 cost again. I've had a game with Relentless Gaze and Fractured where we generated around like 40 or 50 fear in a single turn. It was just insane. It was actually pretty funny. So maybe that's considered like a high spirit combo. So another one would be Portents, which is a amazing card for you. It has that sun and that moon, generates a lot of fear. Another example would be Land of Haunts and Embers. This is a card that's going to generate 2 or maybe 4 fear if you target a blight land, and it has that moon, so you can prevent the blight add with that right innate. And that's something a lot of players forget. If you have that moon, it says whenever your powers would add blight, you may destroy a presence instead of adding that blight. And yes, that affects that left innate, but it also affects any power cards that you draft. So it says, is the spirit edge case proof? Yes, it can. It has the ability to skip multiple times with Blinding Glare. How many boards are viable for the spirit? I'm not sure. And can the spirit clear its board? The answer is yes. I give the slight edge to Relentless Gaze over Downpour just because there's a plenty of drafts that you can pick up that are just, you can just completely carry the whole team. Like if you pick up like Portents of Disaster or Land of Haunts and Embers, or what are some other great cards? Like Drought is pretty absurd too. Just being able to completely obliterate a land. There are so many drafts that you can pick up, and it allows Gaze to carry the game. I also think Gaze utilizes support better than Downpour does, and is also very resilient to edge cases. Looking at number 9, we have the Keeper of the Forbidden Wilds. Now, this is a spirit that a lot of players think is extremely powerful, and in a way they are right, but I do think it's a little bit overblown. I do think Keeper is pretty busted, but not as busted as people say it is. And there's a bunch of reasons why. I think, I don't even know where to start with the spirit. Let's actually first talk about the innates. So the right innate, it's essentially 2 actions tied to one that you get every turn for free. It pushes an explorer, stops a build, and then adds a wilds, stops another explorer later in the game. So it's very, there's just so much value in this innate, especially into like matchups like France or matchups like Russia, where you can stop a land multiple times. Then you have this left innate that deals damage in 1 land, but if you have the 4 plant, you deal it into 2 lands. That's another 2 actions. So both of your innates are essentially 4 actions worth. That's like 4 card plays to achieve this level. You then get free Dahan movement off your special rule. Now, it says Forbidden Ground, like they play it off as if you're not a Dahan spirit, but really you are. Um, Great Sacred Sites, and you use that to move Dahan for free. So this is essentially another action that you get. So all of this is going to give you 5 actions worth. That's like 5 card plays on top of already having 5 card plays. A typical growth pattern for Keeper is placing a presence from top track with your G3, and then you're going to gain a power card. Then on turn 2, you're going to place a presence as well as another presence, gaining another power card. Oh, and then I forgot to say, on turn 1, you're going to gain a power card with Boon of Growing Power. So this is on turn 2. You've already gained 3 power cards. And then on turn 3, ideally you want to G3 again, as well as G3 and G4 again, getting you to this part. And that will get you another card play. So by turn 4, you're going to have four additional card gains. I might have been saying card plays, but card gains. In addition, you're already going to be reaching that coveted 3/3. And this is something that I've talked about in my previous videos, but that's the idea that you're generating 3 energy a turn as well as 3 card plays. Most spirits, it'll take them at least 5 to 6 turns to reach this. Keeper gets this on turn 3. And it actually gets even more insane. On turn 4, you can go G1 and G3, getting you to 4 plays, and you get the energy off G1 and the energy off G3. That means you'll have 6 energy, 4 plays on turn 4 and on reclaim. And I mean, that's absurd. And I already talked about the action economy from your innates in your special rule. You just absolutely destroy the adversary just because you have so many actions. You have so many card drafts. You have elements on tracks. There's just so much you can do. You can flex any major that you would like. So consistency. You're drafting a lot of cards, so you're going to be able to replicate the desired outcome. Matchups. This is one of Keeper's bigger weaknesses, and that's because you have a pretty weak Sweden matchup. And when I say weak, it's still very playable. It's just there are some explorers that could occur that can really put you in bad shape. The rest of the adversaries are pretty good. Habsburg Livestock can also be somewhat problematic, but I haven't had too many issues. If you can draft a skip, you'll do perfectly fine, and you have plenty of majors to draft, or plenty of cards to draft, so you can find that major. Number of spirit combos, you do have a power boon, and you also have plenty of drafts to find those good support cards. So you have plenty of opportunities to support the team. And this is something that I didn't talk about with Relentless Gaze and with Downpour. Downpour is stuck on that 3 plays. So if when it's Downpour's drafting cards, you're not going to be able to play those good support cards like Gift of Constancy or Twin Days. Those are cards that Downpour can't utilize that well. Relentless Gaze can. And that's because Gift of Constancy has that sun, so it hits your innates. Or Twin Days. It's not here. But because I have to press the start game. But there's plenty of minors that Gaze can pick up in the minor deck that fit what Gaze wants to do, and you have 4 card plays, so you have more card plays to play those extra cards, and that's also why I put Gaze higher than Downpour. But so yeah, Keeper, you'll be able to draft plenty of minors, and any of the support minors you pick up, you can just play for the team. Number of high spirit combos, the more support you give Keeper, the stronger it will perform, especially in that early mid game. And that's because you're going to have so much energy, so many card plays, whatever you pick up, whatever majors you draft, you'll be able to threshold. I already talked about the ability to give out support, the ability to tank. It can, just because you do have that left innate doing tons of damage, as well as any majors that you draft. Ability to carry or take over the game. This is where Keeper shines the best. A lot of times I've just seen Keeper reach that 7/5 plus the 2 energy on reclaim, and you're getting 9 energy a turn, 5 card plays, throwing down 2 or 3 majors, giving out support, healing blight, plus both of your innates unlocked, you just decimate everything. How much blight does the spirit take on average? This is going to be largely dependent. I've seen it take as little as 2, but as much as like 5. It's going to be dependent on the explorers as well as your drafts. Really, with Keeper, you're looking for that nice defend 5, that nice defend 6. Can the spirit create isolation pockets? Nope, it cannot. How much fear does the spirit generate? I wish it could generate more, but it really doesn't generate fear until that mid end game. You do have some fear off Towering Wrath, but I try to avoid playing this just because it's so expensive. Is the spirit edge case proof? I mean, it kind of is. I mean, you do have, if the worst explorer does occur, you will have some problems, but you do have plenty of drafts to find answers. How many boards are viable for the spirit? Quite a lot. And can the spirit clear its board? Most definitely. Really, the only thing holding the spirit back is it doesn't have the best of matchups compared to the other spirits in S tier and X tier. But really, if it gets over that turn 2, turn 3 hump, it usually just destroys any adversary. Looking at number 8, we have Starlight. And this is one of the spirits that, when I was placing it, I didn't know if it should be higher or lower than Keeper. I think they're both really close. The biggest reason why I have Starlight above Keeper is because Starlight is extremely flexible in the early game, and it has access to that Defend 5, that Water innate that removes Blight, as well as a skip. So even when the worst edge case occurs in the early game, Starlight can survive. Now, looking at the consistency, Starlight sees so many power cards in the early game. I tell players it's about 18 cards, and you'll be gaining a power card. So typically with my Starlight builds, I place a presence, gain an energy, and then I gain a power card. So let me start a game here real quick. It looks like this here. I've gained 1 power card on turn 1. I've played Shape and Boon of Reimagining. Shape will give me a second card. Boon of Reimagining will give me 2 more. So after looking at this, I've looked at 14 cards by the end of turn 1. And there's 100 cards in the minor deck. So I've seen about 15%, which is insane. And a lot of times on turn 2, I'll get another power card, which gets you 18 looks, which is about 20%. Now, I have been modifying my build to grab a major on turn 2. I'm not sure if the major is better than the minor on turn 2 yet, but it's definitely something that you can do with the spirit. So very consistent because you see so many power cards. Matchups against all level 6 adversaries. Starlight, it's great, just like Downpour, just like Relentless Gaze. This is a spirit that beats every adversary 100% of the time. Number of spirit combos. This is a spirit that can combo with plenty of spirits, and that's because you can give out that Boon of Reimagining, or you can find other minors in the deck, those support minors, and you can find them and play them to support the team. I do know it's part of several high power spirit combos too, and it is able to support. It can support by giving out that power card boon, unique support that you possibly can draft via the minor deck. It takes very minimal blight, so it's able to buffer that blight pool for other spirits, and also you have that water innate to remove blight as well. The ability to tank, you very well can tank because you have access to a skip, plenty of drafts for a defend, as well as a defend built with that earth, with that defend 5 there. Can the spirit take, or can the spirit carry or take over the game? The answer is yes, it very well can. It's going to be largely dependent on those majors that you draft. I already talked about how much blight it's taking. Can it create isolation pockets? Not really. A lot of your effects are going to be very slow, especially that turn 1. You need to draft a ton of cards. Starlight doesn't generate much fear, not until that mid-end game, and that can be one of its biggest weaknesses, especially if you play it into England. But because you have so many drafts, I like to tech into fear. Like I like looking for those cards like Portents. or like my favorite one is Rain of Blood. There's plenty of drafts that you can find that tech a lot of fear. Is the Spirit edge case proof? Yes, it is. That defend 5, that skip, these are effects that can um, really prevent the worst possible explorers from causing blight and prevent the adversary from really getting ahead of you. It can play on any board, it does not matter. And can the Spirit clear its board? The answer is yes. As I mentioned earlier, Starlight is only above Keeper just because it has a better early game. I do think Keeper has a better late game, but a lot of Spirit Island occurs within the first 2 to 3 turns. And if Keeper has a terrible edge case explorer, that could just kill him and kill the whole team. Well, Starlight, no matter what, will always be able to survive. Looking at number 7, we have my favorite spirit in Spirit Island, and that is Towering Roots of the Jungle. Now, this is another spirit that I've been on the fence about. It's Towering Roots, Starlight, and Keeper. These spirits, I'm not sure the exact order. Sometimes I like Starlight more, sometimes I like Keeper, sometimes I like Roots. It's really tough once you get this high up. Um, so why is Towering Roots here? So first, consistency. Just like Starlight, just like Keeper, you're drafting so many power cards. You have power cards off your G2, power cards off your G3, power cards off your Boon of Resilient Power. So you're constantly digging through the deck, finding answers that you can, or finding cards that you can utilize and transition those effects to be very favorable. Matchups across all level 6 adversaries, just like Relentless Gaze, just like Downpour, just like Starlight. You're good against all of the adversaries. There isn't a single one that you're bad against. Your weakest matchup is Sweden, but it's way better than Keeper's Sweden matchup, and you have plenty of outs. I actually ran that matchup 5, 6 times the other day, and I won all of them, pretty handedly. And not all of them I even drafted defense. It's just the matchup isn't as bad as I originally thought it was. The number of spirit combos. This is a spirit that can combo with tons of spirits, and that's because you can give power cards out with Boon of Resilient Power. You have a defend that you can give out targeting another spirit. You can give out Vitality to another spirit. Looking up here, you increase the blight pool. A lot of times, Roots will take maybe 1 blight. That just tells you just how insane the spirit is. Like max 2 blight into most matchups. If I'm ever taking more than 3 with the spirit, then that means something went wrong. Either I made a mistake or maybe I got really badly edge cased. Sometimes you're also able to donate actions with that left innate. Maybe you want to gather a Dahan for another spirit, shuffle Dahan around, or maybe stop a build with that left innate. Number of high spirit combos. This is something that I want to do more of. It is my favorite spirit in the game, but I need to do more high double adversaries. I know it can compete nicely into Diff 11, Diff 12 double adversary games, but I want to see if I can take it to that 6/6 level, and I'm very confident it can. I just haven't had the time. I talked about the ability to give out support with the cards here, but also you can draft Gift of Power, you can draft Gift of Constancy. These are minors that you can find in the deck. Living Energy, Gift of Power, Constancy. These are cards you can pick up, and they fit right into your kit quite nicely. Ability to tank. Because you have Vitality, it doesn't matter how many invaders are in the land. The Vitality is still going to ignore that blight that they add during the Ravage step. This this allows Roots to just tank tons of invaders. I've played Roots into Scotland 6 and I've taken all the escalations and I've gotten no help and I've been fine. Now it does take a little bit of luck on what you're drafting and also experience and how to draft, but it's possible. Roots can tank. It is a dump land. A lot of times I'll combo with a Finder player or a Darkness player and let them dump everything to my Incarna land because I know I can just add Vitality there. It's not an issue. Ability to carry or take over the game. This is another spirit, just like Keeper, just like Starlight. The more resources you pour into Roots, the more powerful it will get. And I know you could say that about any spirit, but with Roots, it really, really can completely take over the game. If you find Unrelenting Growth, or if you find Entwined Power, these are majors that if you can draft it, if you can find them in the major power deck, and if you start playing them every turn, you'd be giving out plenty of proliferation effects, plenty of energy, plenty of power boons, stuff like that. And it's just to show what they are. Unrelenting Growth is not here, but Entwined Power is. Being able to, this is an easy threshold for Roots, and you'd be able to give plenty of energy to other players, swapping power cards. There's plenty of majors that when Roots picks up, it can just take over the game. And if other spirits give you energy or give you proliferation, that allows you more. It lets you access and play those majors earlier than when you normally could. How much blight does the spirit take on average? Like I said, if you're like, usually it's less than 2. I've had games where I take 0 blight. Ability to create isolation pockets. This is actually an inside joke with my group. I call Roots pocket Roots. But yeah, Roots can create pockets very easily, and that's because your left innate, your right innate, as well as Radiant can deal with invaders in the fast and slow phase. So it's very easy to create pockets with Roots. How much fear does the spirit generate? Not that much in the early game. It is more than Keeper. It is more than Starlight, and that's because you do have that steady 1 fear on that right innate plus Radiant. But in the end game, Roots can generate quite a lot of fear, as this right innate will be hitting every turn for 3 fear, plus Radiant lets you get 5 fear a turn, plus a major. Like maybe you're playing and you end up grabbing, this is like one of your best majors, but you end up getting my favorite, Trees Radiate, which is another 3 fear, plus 3 fear. So you got 3, that's 8, that's 11 fear with just this, and your right innate, and you're killing stuff with Trees Radiate. So like this is like 3 fear cards. So yeah, Roots can become a fear monster in that late game. Fun fact, this right innate actually used to have a Sun Moon threshold. So it used to be 4 lines of text, and the top threshold was Sun Moon, single fear. And those were the days where it was I mean, obviously they had to remove it because it was just so strong, but it was competing with a lot of fear spirits with fear generation. At one point it was getting about the same amount of fear as darkness. Of course, this is exaggerated to a degree, but it was like maybe 10 or 20 fear below darkness, which is kind of surprising as darkness's main thing is fear, and Roots is not really a fear spirit. Now, obviously, once they removed that Sun Moon, it ended up cutting like 8 fear from the kit, which is it definitely hurt, especially into England. Is it edge case proof? Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. Unfortunately, the defend is only defend 2, and defend 2 tends to get edge cased quite a lot. Now, you do have blooming as a vitality. You do have plenty of Dahan movement, so you can get around bad explorers, maybe dodge those Sweden escalations, but it's not as edge case proof as a spirit like Starlight is. Now you do have plenty of drafts as well as a lot of elements, so you can pay for all of those payment events too, which is pretty nice. And can the spirit clear its board? Yes. In all of my games against every adversary, Roots can always clear its board. And looking at number 6, we have Many Minds, move as 1. Now, as I mentioned previously, 7, 8, 9, Roots, Starlight Keeper, those are all spirits that can be interchanged with each other. I really see Many Minds above the rest. And I'm not sure why. I think it's because the fear that is tied to Many Minds, the major synergies, the consistency, the support, just kind of gives it a little bit of an edge over the rest of the field. The matchups, just like every other Spirit in S tier, there isn't a single matchup with Many Minds where I'm like, man, I don't know if Many Minds can hang. Really, that skip from Many Minds, as well as that defend on the right innate, allows Many Minds to hang into any adversary. And then you have matchups like Russia, where you can take all of the beasts on the island and just take all of the escalations, basically making the game easier for the rest of the team. Or England, where you generate so much fear with that right innate and with your cards. They're basically 2 spirits worth of fear. So they're the very tough adversaries. Many minds can just clutch and just carry for the whole team. And I really think that that is it really makes it stand out compared to a lot of the other S tier spirits. Number of spirit combos. Many Minds has one of the most underrated support cards in the game, and that's Boon Swarming Bedevilment. It says for the rest of this turn, each of target spirit's presence grants defend 1, and then target spirit may push up to one of their presence. This is an amazing AoE defend. It also gives that presence movement, so that's insane for those new Incarna spirits. Or maybe you need to push presence to now get range on a specific land. Number of high spirit combos. I'm sure they exist. I'm not sure what they are just because I need to play more Many Minds. There's so many spirits to play right now. It's hard to play all of them, but I'm sure they do exist. I know you have stuff like Swarming Bedevilment with a spirit like Hearth Vigil, allowing Hearth Vigil to defend multiple times in its lands, and then Hearth Vigil can give Story and Season. I've seen Swarming Bedevilment with a spirit like with Fangs, Green. There's just so many spirits. Stone, being able to access other lands. Ability to give out support. I've been talking about that with Boon Swarming Bedevilment. Ability to tank, just like Relentless Gaze, just like Roots. You have essentially this skip or this vitality, this way to deal with those big built-up lands. Ability to carry or take over the game. Many Minds can do this better than Roots and, well, I don't know about Roots. Roots has Entwined Power. It really depends on what you draft. But if Many Minds picks up Sea Monsters, Tigers Hunting, Insatiable Hunger of the Swarm, let me pull those out for people. Like Sea Monsters, just generating insane amounts of fear. It's also thresholdable with your uniques, and you have that beast movement, so you can max this card out. Or maybe Tigers Hunting, where you can gather beasts, generate fear, deal tons of damage. There's just so many major hits that if you hit them, or like Power Storm, you just completely take over the game, and the game no longer becomes about everyone playing Spirit Island. It just comes down to how much fear can Many Minds generate. Can Many Minds clear 2 boards? Can it clear 3 boards? And that's just what these cards enable Many Minds to do. How much blight does the spirit take on average? It is a defensive spirit with that right innate. It has a lot of control tools. Most games, it's about 1 to 2. Sometimes it can exceed that, but like I said, usually it's about 2 blight. Can the spirit create isolation pockets? It can, but most of the time it doesn't. And it can because you do have a fast push effect with that, with the pursue with scratches, pecks, and stings. But a lot of times you're going to have those built-up lands that you're skipping every turn. How much fear does the spirit generate? It generates a lot of fear with that right innate, with the major synergies, with your uniques. If you pick up like Rain of Blood, there's plenty of minors that also fit right into the kit. Rain of Blood. Or maybe you found Here There Be Monsters. Lots of on-element fear cards that fit right into what Many Minds wants to do. In addition, you're also able to Fear Burst. And you can with that Dreadful Tide, where you can throw all of your beasts into one land, remove a bunch of beasts to generate lots of fear. Is the Spirit Edge case proof? Sometimes it is. You do have access to that skip, but your defend is a little bit on the weaker end with being defend 2, defend 4. So there's a couple increasing aggression events that increase the damage of Ravages that can kind of get through that right innate defense. How many boards are viable for the Spirit? I find Many Minds can play on any board. There are some boards that are better than others, but it's not like you're going to lose the game because you picked the wrong board. And can the Spirit clear its board? It's going to be largely dependent on the adversary. What puts Many Minds above the rest is it's just that fear, that consistent amount of fear you're generating, plus the support that you have with Bedevil, plus the major synergies, plus the skip. There's just so many factors that I think just set Many Minds apart from the rest of the spirits below it. I'm not going to post the tier list maker at the end of this video. I will post a final one at the end of my X tier video so you guys can see where all of the spirits are compared to the others. If you like this video, like, subscribe for more content. I will see you guys in the next video.